Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. Recently, Carl got a new job with a big IT company as a graduate recruit. However, he had a problem. Pay was good, and it seemed like the company was a good place to work with a lot of perks. The only problem was that his manager didn't like how he looked. His hair, to be more specific. Carl liked rock music and had hair that was well below his shoulders. He liked it that way because it looked good on him, and many women liked men with long hair. Business casual was the dress code at the company, which meant that people had to wear nice pants, a shirt, and a tie. He did what was expected of him as much as possible. He wore the right clothes and tied his hair back as a compromise. No one had said anything during the month of training and orientation, but that all changed the day he was put on a working team. He was told in no uncertain terms to get a haircut. Even though the company was a modern IT provider, many of the companies they worked for were more traditional finance houses. The company wanted to keep up a professional look and didn't want scruffy-looking programmers to hurt that. Carl was not okay with this. He was much better dressed than most of his coworkers. His hair was always clean, and when it was tied back, it looked very neat and nice. He got the job because he had long hair, and as far as he was concerned, he wasn't going to cut it. It seemed like his manager was the only one who didn't like it. Diane had worked for the company for 30 years, and she liked it when things were done her way. Usually, this wasn't a problem because she knew everything about her job and was almost never wrong. After a few weeks, the situation came to a head when Carl was called into Diane's office. When he walked in, his manager and two other people he knew to be from Human Resources greeted him. "Good morning, Carl," said one. "Hi, I'm Dave Briggs, and this is Carol Davis. Diane wants to talk to us about how you didn't follow the company dress code, and we've been asked to arbitrate." Carl sat down as asked, and Diane told the HR people what she thought was wrong. Carl was given a chance to respond, and he explained his point of view. Dave and Carol talked for a short time, and then they asked Carl to step outside so they could talk to Diane. He thought he would get a small scolding and be told to get a haircut. Surely the company wouldn't back him up against a manager with Diane's level of experience. Carl was asked to come back inside after a few minutes. This time, Carol was first to speak. "Diane has decided that the matter will end, as long as you keep your hair neat and it doesn't get in the way of your work," Carl told Diane. Diane didn't look happy, and Carl was afraid she might get back at him later. "You were hired the way you look, so we can't complain about it now. Besides, no one expects the women to have short hair, do they?" "Carl, do you have any questions or problems with this decision?" asked Dave. Carl said no. "Then we'll consider the matter closed. Thanks for your time, Diane." Carl kept worrying about how Diane would react to the decision. Surely she wouldn't just give up like that. But the next few weeks showed she didn't mean any harm. Carl was treated with respect by his coworkers, and he didn't get any awkward jobs because he won. Carl was, in fact, sent to work on a different project team for a few weeks. This was in no way a punishment. The project was a very prestigious one to work on, and the work was fun and interesting. Before he saw his boss again, it had been almost 2 weeks. "Oh, Carl, I was hoping to catch you. I heard you were interested in this kind of thing. A friend of mine sent me this demo of some new visualizer software. If you want to check it out before you leave and give it back to me tonight?" Carl was almost ready to go home, but she was trying to show she didn't mind. It wouldn't hurt to do the same for him and watch the disc before he went home. Plus, he was really curious about what was on the disc. "Thanks, Diane. I'll run it now and bring it to your office," he said as he took the disc and walked toward his cubicle. "No, don't use your computer. Design is empty. Grab one of their graphics stations, and you'll get the most out of it. I can log you on from my office." This was a big favor, as Design was known for being very protective of their SGs. He thanked Diane once more, and then he went to Design. Sure enough, when he got there, a station was already logged on and ready to go. He put the disc in the computer and ran the one file on it. The graphics were very impressive, and the big screen made them even more so. He wondered how the complicated swirling fractal designs would work on a slower home computer. Surely this stuff couldn't be shrunk down and still have the same effect. Even so, it was great work. He thought he could watch it for hours, even if it didn't have music. When he looked up, it was almost 6 o'clock. He had been looking at the screen for almost 20 minutes, better than he thought at first. He put his hands on his eyes and stretched. The demo still worked, but it was no longer interesting. He just shrugged and threw the disc out and logged off. Diane's office was still open, but she wasn't there, so he left the disc on her desk and went home. When he got home, he called for food to be brought to him while he took a shower. When his food came, he only ate a few bites and left most of it. He didn't seem to like it at all. In fact, he never got hungry again the rest of the week. Usually, a change like that would have worried him, but it didn't seem to bother him. He just ate less of what he liked, like salads and other light foods. He noticed his weight starting to go down. It didn't bother him. Over the past few years, he had started to get a little too heavy for his 5'8" inches height. A few days later, when he was in the shower, he was amazed by how smooth the skin was around his waist and hips. When he got dressed for work, it was just as interesting to feel the clothes against his smooth skin. By the end of that week, he could see that his legs were starting to grow a little stubble again. It made sense to shave them so they would stay smooth. In fact, it became something he always did on the weekends. He never asked himself why he did it. He also wasn't surprised when a few weeks later, he tried on woman clothes. He just started putting them on under his normal clothes. When his cotton robe disappeared, it didn't bother him because a beautiful satin gown that was much more comfortable to wear appeared in its place. His weight kept going down. After about a month, he had a smaller chest and shoulders, and his shirts were too big and didn't fit right. If anyone saw, they didn't say anything. Carl didn't care, because he hadn't felt this good in years. Even though Carl didn't care that his own behavior was getting stranger and stranger, something was bothering him at work. He couldn't focus, so his projects started to fall behind. This was seen and talked about. There were warnings on his desk, but he couldn't do anything. He just couldn't get himself to work. Diane would have to call him into her office at some point. A few weeks went by before the axe dropped. On a Friday night, he was working late to try to catch up on his work when his boss called him in. He thought that someone from personnel would also be there, but Diane was the only one there. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Without another manager there, the worst she could do is give another informal warning. He was made to wait and not given a seat, which is a well-known way to show an employee that you are more important. After a few minutes, she stopped talking on the phone and looked up as if she had just seen him. "Close the door, Carl," Diane told her surprised employee. "This isn't the first time we've had a little chat, but it's the first one I've decided to let you remember. I want you to see how far you've come recently and talk about your future with the company." The way she said it made it sound like a regular performance review, but Carl knew it was more. She walked across the office and opened a tall cabinet. On the inside of the door, she saw a long mirror. "Take a good look at yourself." Carl stared at his own reflection. Even though he saw it every day, it wasn't until the last few months that he realized what it meant. He must have lost almost 40 pounds, and there wasn't a single hair on his body. His skinny legs were covered in sheer black stalks that were held up by a black lace suspender belt that went all the way around his skinny waist. Carl was still in shock and just stared at himself in the mirror. "You've been under a lot of stress lately, so I had no trouble granting your request for 4 weeks off, even though you didn't give me much notice. I look forward to seeing you back from your break feeling better. In the meantime, I'll get this letter from you, which you were kind enough to sign for me," she said, holding up a typed page. "It says that you want to go back to work as Stacy and that you want to apply for gender reassignment. The company is very open-minded and will support you. It's a shame that you'll be under too much stress to keep up the level of work we expect from your grade, but this," she showed him another letter with his signature on it, "will ask that we put you on our downshift program. Since it's clear you can't do your job now, we won't be surprised, but we'll be happy to accept you as an administrative assistant. Personnel won't have any trouble putting you where you want to be when both you and I ask that you be my assistant." Carl had a hard time taking all of this in, and he should have. He was planned to... An assistant? Who works for Diane? He wanted to say something, but he couldn't say anything. I'd wish you a relaxing month off, but I have a feeling you'll be too busy to rest. I'll pick you up early tomorrow. Good night, Stacy. With that, she grabbed her handbag and walked out of the office. 2 weeks later, Carl went back to work, ready to face his old coworkers as his new self. Responses to the 2 letters personnel got with his signature showed concern and support for his brave decisions. His new job and salary were also confirmed. Even since the last time Carl had been in Diane's office, he had changed a lot. Over the past few weeks, he had worked hard at his new identity, learning how to talk, stand, and act in ways that gave the impression that he was a woman. After only a few weeks of hypnotic training, he had picked up a lot and was very convincing. Diane had put a lot of pressure on him, encouraging him to act more like a woman and squashing any male behavior. She had taken him even further than she had expected, bringing out a shy, girlish side in him. He had lost even more weight, getting down to just over 115 pounds, and his thin body was getting more curves. His small savings were gone, and he was now several hundred pounds in debt. First, he had electrolysis to get rid of the last hairs. Then he went to a number of beauty salons to get a complete makeover. His hair was cut into cute bangs and restyled, and every morning he spent a long time drying and setting it to make Diane happy. His nails were long and in perfect shape because he let them grow out. He had to go through painful waxing to make his legs look better, but most of his money had been used to buy clothes that fit his new shape and made him look more like a woman. Diane had insisted that he stop wearing pants. She bought mostly skirts and dresses to show off his best features. To make them look even better, she chose mostly high-heeled shoes, which Carl had to work hard to learn how to move gracefully in. She didn't think he, or let's say she, couldn't pull them off. So it was Stacy, not Carl, who swung her legs out of a cute white hatchback with her knees together. Carl's big off-road vehicle was too expensive to run on the salary of a junior assistant, so he traded it in for something better suited to his needs. She crossed the parking lot to get to the main building by taking short, stumbling steps and swinging her hips. She wore a short plaid pinafore with high-heeled shoes and straps that went with her dress and white tights that were very thin. Her makeup was done perfectly, with bright, fresh colors that made her look younger. Diane was happy to see her new helper trot across the parking lot. Still, she had a lot of ideas for Stacy. Given a year to prove herself in her new role, there was little doubt that the girl's request to switch genders would be granted. Keeping her in line wouldn't be hard at all. She had become so obedient that it surprised everyone. Diana had completely hypnotized Stacy, and now Stacy was ready to do anything. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.